A good chance of snow, up to 3 inches for many areas, of inch or so in the warmer areas, and highs tomorrow.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, March the 6th, 2017. Welcome to the Moscow City Council. A meeting with you. Would all please rise? I'm going to lead us in a pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing of order is the consent agenda.
I would move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Art and a second by Catherine to approve the consent agenda as is, and I will start to roll with Walter.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will move on to the next thing, which is staff recognition report. Gary, do we have anything today, sir?
No report, Your Honor.
Okay, mayoral appointments, we have none. Item number 3. Item number 4 is public comment. And the mayor's response period, we run for like 15 minutes every session, and folks from the audience can come up and tell us what they want at the podium, as long as it's not before Planning and Zoning or the Board of Adjustments. And before we get started with that, I just want to make a couple of comments. We use this period every single council meeting that we have. We're a municipality, and we like the people in our city to be able to tell us what's on their minds, and we accept them graciously, and we like to hear the graciousness of those folks out there and their concerns. The point that I'm making here is that we're very accessible. I, as the mayor, and these 6 councilors up here, to the people that live in our fine city, and so, which is kind of a fun thing, because we're all about locals things and doing things right here in Moscow, and getting the word out about what we do or what we don't do, but we work together on things. With that, Victoria, I'll let you go ahead and talk.
Well, that was a pretty good lead-in anyway. So, Victoria Seaver, 121 North Lily, Moscow. So, I know you guys guys and gals, like to see kids show up in the chamber. And about a month ago, the Palouse Prairie School was before the Board of Adjustments, and that's all done. And a bunch of kids talked, but you're not going to get to see them because it's all done and over. So I wanted to point out a couple of things. And that is that 3 of the kids came up and were part of the presentation, and a bunch of them came up to this microphone and talked to their local government, which I thought was pretty cool. They did their homework. They talked about being engaged in the community with, civic stuff. And one of them even said that students had the power to change the world. And that is a bright spot in today's politics. So I wanted to encourage you to go look at the playback, and you can skip through that whole front part and just listen to the kids, because I think you'll be proud of them.
That'd be awesome. Thank you, Victoria. Others that would like to come up? Okay, well, with that, come on up, miss, and just tell us your name and address, folks. And
I'm Dean Stewart, 411 South Hayes Street, and I would like to, first of all, thank Mayor Lambert and City Council members, staff, for the opportunity to address the ongoing conversation regarding the Tiger Grant that the council has been working on. Not everybody knows, a lot of people don't even care about the project, but those who do know are grateful that you guys are working, you guys and gals, are working to get that Tiger Grant ready for resubmission this year. A lot of us know that you've already done a lot of good, thoughtful planning and preparation for the grant's future largesse for the town. I'm thinking now especially about Mountain View Road, the upgrade for that, the improvements in the Sixth Street Bridge upgrade, which will enhance sustainable, safe transportation to and from town, and looking forward to that. Over many years, Moscow has grown into a smallish city made up of connected neighborhoods, which make for connected neighbors. The planning for this grant has the capability of continuing that long traditions trajectory, as well as the capability, the possibility of inserting infrastructure that could and probably would harm what has been built up that's so good. The council always got big jobs to do, and this is just one of them. Third Street is on a lot of our minds who think about this project. It's one of the keys. Third Street is one of the keys to the city's infrastructure, and Moscow demands, as you know, careful, forward-thinking, inclusive planning now, and thinking about that ahead of time. There has been some talk among City Council about putting a car traffic bridge at the end on the east way out of 3rd Street, out to Mountain View Road, to get more cars through on 3rd Street through the east side of Moscow to get through faster, but not safer. But 3rd Street is already a safe and popular thoroughfare that carries people throughout Moscow to and from the university, to downtown, to schools, to City Park, East City Park, 1912 Center, to several settled neighborhoods with people of all ages who are walking, who are biking, who are driving cars and wheelchairs and riding buses. 3rd Street is a unique thoroughfare. It's not just another road to be at the mercy of car traffic and selfish hurry. In a more helpful and innovative way, opening up 3rd Street out all the way to the east with a non-car traffic bridge would enhance availability to walk, to wheelchair and bike more easily and more safely from one end of town than all the way to the other end of town in just several kinds of transportation. And actually, a creative and neighborhood-enhancing pedestrian bridge would likely enhance the acceptability of the Tiger Grant, because innovation, as they say, is one of the significant criteria for those grant masters and their largesse, which is just waiting to be won by somebody. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Stewart?
Gretchen Stewart, 411 South Hayes, Moscow. Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you for, as you said, this possibility of publicly commenting on things that are community concerns and community matters. I too, think that the 2016 Tiger Grant application that Moscow submitted last year contains just a multitude of wonderful proposals, and I hope we get this grant. I've read all the pages several times. Most every one of those proposed improvements in that Tiger Grant point in the same positive direction as the many recent safety improvements around town that are very noticeable, and we love them, like the traffic calming that's by the middle school and on the U of I in a couple of places, the enhanced bike routes and the bike signage all over town, and the use of roundabouts. That's just a few examples. However, that 2016 Tiger Grant application still contains a proposed bridge for use by motorized vehicles over Paradise Creek at 3rd Street and Mountain View, a bridge which many of us feel endangers rather than enhances safety. This proposal seems to be kind of like a misfit with all the other proposals in there, with the thrust of all of them, which is to improve safety for all, and especially improve safety for vulnerable non-motorized users. So speaking with and for a local group called Citizens for a Livable Community, I respectfully request that you, our allies, The City Council and staff revise the current Tiger application by inserting a request for funding for a bike and pedestrian and ADA only creek crossing at 3rd Street, and removing the current requested funding for a bridge that would allow motor vehicles use there. That is, substitute a safer alternative for the less safe one. Citizens for a Livable Community has collected hundreds of signatures on a petition from people who live in all parts of Moscow and others who come to town and just use Moscow's streets, including 3rd Street. The petition signers request that, I'm going to abbreviate, but these are the 4 points up at the top, that the city construct a pedestrian bridge, table plans for a car-truck bridge, return East 3rd Street to a neighborhood collector classification, and develop plans to protect neighborhood safety and integrity along East D, B, 3rd, and 6th. In closing, we want you to know that we consider ourselves your allies in the important ongoing and necessary work to preserve and enhance all the desirable and rare qualities that do attract people to Moscow and make them want to stay. Invite their friends and neighbors and relatives to come live here. As your allies, we respectfully request then that somehow, whatever you need to do to make it happen, the City Council direct city staff to modify last year's Tiger application so that it shows only a bicycle, pedestrian, wheelchair accessible passage at the 3rd Street Paradise Creek crossing. If you do that, as Dean said, we believe our city will submit a stronger, more creative, compelling Tiger application that reflects current thinking and best planning practices nationally and internationally. And on that note, I want to say I have three, but I have just a little graphic. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to take the time.
Bring it
to
right
hand
over
it to
here.
you.
That'll be fine.
From, the source is Vision Zero. It's an international and national organization that many U.S. cities belong to and subscribe to the philosophy. And the philosophy is that planners now share at least 50% of the responsibility of making everybody safe. It's not just the people who are out on the streets in a car or walking who have that responsibility, but planners also do. And you can Google that. I did not do anything else except tell you the source. And then I'm going to give you a letter that you probably and hopefully saw last August of 2016. It is a letter that Linda Paul wrote that there are highlights in here of the 10 main reasons to remove from the grant application the 3rd Street motorized vehicular bridge from any further consideration for federal funding. And so those are highlighted, and I just kind of wanted to refresh your memory and say that these are still good reasons. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Others that would like to come up and speak? Okay, we'll give you a hand.
Gary's
here,
going to
Jim.
get it.
Let's make it.
Sure you're going to want that.
Can you hear through the mic?
Yep.
I have no idea.
Yeah, we can hear you, Jim.
It's to get
Okay.
it's to get it on the video and the recording.
Right.
Okay. Well, I know most of you, and most of you have probably seen myself and my dog traveling around town.
Just your name, Jim. Even
Oh,
though
I'm
we
sorry.
know your name and your address, please.
I'm sorry. My name's Larry Klott. I live at 1634 Damon Street, just off from Mountain View, shortly off from B Street. From March until November, hardly a day goes by that I don't use Mountain View and all its tributaries that go to get to wherever I want to go. 3rd Street would be the prime place for me to access the other side of town, anywhere on the other side of the town. I dodge cars, I dodge bikes, I dodge a little of everything. And if we put a car bridge in there, a mobile bridge, it would take away, I think, from that community feeling that we have. And the one thing I've noticed in the last 15 years is that when we would go out, we were the only ones out in a wheelchair, or someone using canes, crutches, braces, or any other adaptive devices. In the last 5 years, hardly a time is out there that I don't see someone in a wheelchair or with a walker going down Mountain View, going somewhere. And these people are kind of dead-ended because to get on the other side of Mountain View, you have to go to 6th Street, but 6th Street has no sidewalk. You have to go to B Street and network around Lena Whitmore and several other places. Or now we're able to get down to Safeway, but it doesn't make sense to go to Safeway to get to East City Park or downtown or Walmart. I think it's going to pose too much of an additional risk. And here's an opportunity for us to put in a friendly foot traffic, wheelchair traffic, bike traffic bridge to cross 3rd Street. I support the Tiger Grant. I think it is just one of the greatest things. When Alyssa called me with the grant project and asked me to write a letter, I was more than glad to get involved with it. Somehow or another, it went from a footbridge to a bridge for cars on 3rd Street. The introduction has a paragraph of my letter in the grant itself. I hope so much that we can get this grant, but I would love to see it be just a pedestrian bridge, not a car bridge.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
We got time for one more if somebody else wants to speak before I move on. One of the things I'll say, folks, is there's been a lot of discussion on the 3rd Street Bridge for many, many years, and both about a pedestrian bridge and a multimodal bridge that would serve all, and there'll be more discussion on that coming up. Staff works extremely hard for getting grants to help improve roads and bridges and infrastructure in our town, and we're going to continue to work hard to get these different things. And sometimes we get them and sometimes we don't get them, and we all know Mountain View is in desperate need of some help, especially with those playgrounds out there. And of course the development on one of the things that's happened, folks, over the last 2 decades has been a tremendous amount of growth on the east side of Mountain View as well, as we all know, any of us that have lived here for very many years. And so we're working forward on it. There'll be more discussion, of course, on it. And so someday there'll be a bridge of some type go in there. We're not sure right at this point exactly what it'll be, but that's something that's coming, that will be coming before us as time goes on. But thank you all so very much for coming and talking to us this evening. With that, I'll move on to the next thing, which is item number 5, and this ties right in with stuff, Idaho Transportation Project update for all of us. And Les, I will turn this over to you, and you can introduce us to some of the Idaho Transportation folks.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Good evening. Yes, this evening we would like to introduce to you two folks from the Idaho Transportation Department District 2 office out of Lewiston, Mr. Doral Hoff and Mr. Ken Helm, and they are here this evening to provide you an update on 2 things that they've been working on. One is the long-awaited US 95 project from Thorn Creek to Moscow, and the other is a newer project that's slated to go this summer, which is essentially a paving project that'll be occurring within the city during this summer. So with that, gentlemen.
Thanks, Les. Called me Mister. I like that. That don't happen very often. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, council, staff. Appreciate you guys having us. You know, I was sitting on the way up in the passenger seat. Doral was driving. By the way, Doral's my boss, so he drives and does the handouts. He does all the work, and I just sit here and talk. So, but I was thinking, you know, it's been a long time since I've been up here and chatted with you guys. Most of you are all new faces, and I think it's been at least 6, 7 years since I've been here. So I'm glad that we're here. Got a lot of good news to talk about on both projects, Thorn Creek to Moscow, and then also on the Latah County paving job. I'm going to start with the Thorn Creek Road to Moscow. And the map that you see in front of me here, it shows the last 3 alignments that we studied in the final environmental impact statement. And that was W4, C3, and E2. And back in November, we submitted the final impact statement to the Idaho Transportation Board for their approval and submittal to the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA. In January of 16, that was submitted to FHWA for their approval. They actually approved it at the Idaho Transportation Board meeting in Grangeville, Idaho in March of 2016. That was a huge, huge milestone for the Idaho Transportation Department District 2. What that did and says is that we can move forward with 2 different things, final design on the project and the right-of-way process. We started right off the bat working on the final design plans, getting them, because all at that time we had is a planning level plans at that time to put together the document. But the right-of-way process, we started right away. We hired a consultant to help us put together some right-of-way plans and the descriptions and legal descriptions and exhibits for that. And we hired, that was David Evans Associates out of Spokane, Washington. And they worked real hard. In the meantime, what we ended up doing is we outsourced the appraisal process, and we hired an appraiser to do all of the appraisals for us. They got started last summer doing that in August, and they actually just completed, well, they aren't quite done. They're almost done completing all of the appraisals. They had about 20 appraisals to do. And the appraisals have to be submitted to what is called a review appraiser. That review appraiser we just hired not too long ago, about a month ago. And he's on board, and he's got a couple of the appraisals right now, and we anticipate him, he has actually got started, and we anticipate him working on them very hard. And each appraisal takes anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks to review. And before he can submit it to it is the next step, which is the negotiator. And the Idaho Transportation Department is currently working on hiring a negotiator at this time. We're hoping to get someone on board at least by the end of this month, first part of next month. That negotiator will be the person that will actually go out, knock on the doors, and negotiate each of the parcels with all the property owners along the E2 route. We are hoping that those appraisals get done by August of this year. We're going to have, in the design end of it, we're going to have a intermediate design review later this month. And then we're also doing something that's called value engineering on the project. Value engineering is a requirement by the feds on a project of any size over $50 million, and that's total cost. That's cost of the construction, the design, the right-of-way, and everything, and we are over that cost. So we're going to be doing that later this month. We put together a team, and what we're doing is we're looking at anything that we might have missed in the district. They'll be going through, I will be explaining what we did for the environmental document. We'll be looking at all that. We'll be looking at structures. They will be looking at traffic control. They'll look at staging areas. It's a 3-day process, and we got about 14 people coming throughout the state to do that, and a couple of them are the feds, too. So that will tell us a lot and help us get to our final design phase of this. Our final design phase, we are hoping to be about in July range of this summer. The funding on this, we have it in 17 and 18 right now, And we are looking at moving the funds, the 17 funds, to 19 because we do anticipate 2 years. These are federal fiscal years, so the beginning of the fiscal year of 18 starts October 2017. And that is our goal, to get this project out and start the bidding processes around October, November of 17. That being said, that means construction will start, I would say at the beginning of 2018. It could start, there's one structure across the Ede Road, and it could start there. Who knows where they're going to start? Don't know that yet. But I do anticipate doing a lot of excavation that first season and doing most of the work in 2018, finishing up in 2019. There is about 3 million yards, 2.8 million yards right now of excavation, and it's going to take them a while to get that done. I do also know there's a lot of contractors that are very interested in this project. I've been already getting phone calls from Montana, Salt Lake, Seattle, California. Big contractors that are interested. That's pretty exciting, actually, because that helps the bids, as we all know. So anyway, everything goes good. At the end of 2019, we should be having a ribbon cutting and opening that new 4-lane highway. We'll have a 4-lane highway all the way from Lewiston clear up to the town of Moscow and into the town of Moscow, actually.
Ken, that's very exciting news, and it's been a long time coming for that dangerous stretch of road to get fixed, a long time. So,
yeah. And seriously, we do appreciate your guys' support. All of you
Absolutely.
Have been awesome throughout this whole process and what have you. We're getting close. Who knows? And there is a lawsuit. I should bring that up, of course. We had a lawsuit back in 2003 on the environmental assessment, the first document that was wrote, and we lost that lawsuit based on there was really only 2 factors in it. The judge said that we needed to do an environmental EIS, and that was just from top of Eisenhower Hill into town because we left the existing alignment at that point. And the other factor was there was actually 80 acres of a property owner's land that we were purchasing for a conservation easement. And he said he didn't really like that end of it. There was no backup information to justify that. So he said we had to back up and do an EIS on this last stretch in here, this 7-mile stretch. I do really anticipate this lawsuit going fairly quickly. We've already submitted what is called the administrative record. It's huge. It's got tons and tons of stuff. That was submitted about 3 weeks ago to the judge and the other side. And the last go around when we did the E8, the whole process was about 6-month process. So assuming that it goes somewhat the same way, I would anticipate hearing something by the end of 6 months. I don't know if we're going to go to court. Of course, the judge can say, rule in favor of them, which is Paradise Ridge Coalition, by the way, or us, or he could say, let's go to trial, and like he did last time. And so that was that full 6-month process when we went to trial. So keep your fingers crossed, and let's hope if we do go to trial that the Auto Transportation Department basically wins and we can build a project and start saving lives out there.
yeah, be great.
So, any questions about Thorn Creek before I get into the next one?
Well, I think you explained it real thorough. Does council have any questions?
Well covered.
Yeah. Thank you, Ken.
So the next project Les asked me to talk about, we get together, the District 2, a couple of staff members and several staff members from, thank you, Dor, from city staff. We get together about every quarter and meet to talk about different projects, what's going on. It could be signals, striping, all sorts of things. It's been very valuable. We think that's been awesome, Les. We get a lot out of it. I hope they get a lot out of it by doing this. And during that, I usually give an update about Thorn Creek, usually. And then there's another project I brought into the works last meeting, and that's Latah County paving. You got handed out a drawing 11 by 17. that shows all of the different sections that we're going to do. And the reason for the project name of Latah County Paving is, we've done a lot of projects up here in the last many, many years, 39 years that I've been here. I was actually involved with a couple of jobs. But whenever we go through and we do a rehab job or whatever we're going to do up here, we always miss these little pieces, like each of the little couplets. You got on the north end, you got the Jackson that goes to the concrete section. You've got on the south end the Jackson Street that comes into the south couplet. You've got all of these little pieces, that piece from the south couplet to Beach, there to the concrete on State Highway 8. This project, along with several other sections like State Highway 8, Washington State Line to Jackson Street, are going to be done under this project. This project is a FY, fiscal year 2018 project. Fortunately, and recently, we just advanced that project, or turned it from a federal aid to a state-funded project. Our state fiscal year starts for FY18 starts July 1st, 2017. That's this summer in July. We are working right now trying to get it approved so that we can get the funding, which is about $3.5 million, advanced a little bit so we can start the construction work earlier than July 1st, 2017. This project has 50 working days, and we're wanting to get started shortly after the college gets out on recess for the summer recess. That will allow us to easily get done. I anticipate the 1st of August if everything goes good. And that gives us a few weeks just in case something does slip in through there. Really the concept, and I can go through in much detail of each of these routes what we're doing, but pretty much the bottom line is most of the travel lanes in every one of these bracketed areas in front of you, they're going to get we're going to mill down about a half a foot, and then we're going to replace the plant mix there, just in the travel lanes. But the whole section will get 1/1500ths overlay from curb to curb, lip of gutter to lip of gutter, whatever the situation is out there. And then we're also, there's some, you might have noticed, there might be a soft spot or two out there on some of these sections. We're going to end up taking care of, that was a good one, wasn't it, Dory?
Yeah, we have some soft spots, can't we?
I know. Well, with this project, the advantage of this project is we are also going to do what is called a soft spot repair item, to where we can come down and dig down into the sub-base a little bit, see what's going on, and repair that and build that back up. Some of those areas might be a little bit large, but we're going to end up fixing that, and hopefully so that they don't come back. But just doing the mill and inlay, and then with the 1/1500ths overlay on top of that, that's going to be huge throughout this whole community. And then the last section in here that is really big, and I think you guys are very much aware of, it's just up the street, not too far on Washington Street, the little connector down through there. We've been investigating that. Actually, we've been looking at that for several years, many years actually. When that was built, that was a basement underneath there, and who knows what ended up happening, but we have, we think that there was probably garbage put down in there, and basically we filled over the top, and it keeps slipping down, settling down. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down with our drill log information. We're going to go down about 13 feet and rebuild that whole section in through there where that slump is, and hopefully we take care of it. When we bring it back, we're going to use a material that is a rock cap material. It's a little bit bigger material, drainable material with fabrics, and we're going to put it in layers of 3 feet as we build it up. And so we're really hoping that that takes care of it. Then we're also doing about 180 foot of overlay through this whole stretch too, down through there. So it's another try. We're going to try it. We think it's going to work, and we feel pretty confident. Our materials engineer, Chad Clausen, believes in it. So I think we'll make it a lot smoother for you.
Well, that's exciting news, too. We got lots of work to do on our streets here in Moscow, and so we appreciate all the help that we get from the state. Ken, Darla, thank you very much. Council, I have questions for Ken. Walter, I'll start with you.
Ken, do you know yet if you're going to be talking about detours? Are you going to be able to keep traffic flowing on the same streets by working half at a time or something like that?
That's our goal. we are hoping to get, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to try to keep, the advantage is we got 4 lanes pretty much throughout all of these stretches. So you can do that, even if we, let's say State Highway 8, Washington State line to Line Street, we take the 2 westbound lanes going out. We could put 2 lanes on the eastbound traffic. The beauty up here is the traffic reduces drastically when College is out. And so that's really, really going to help us a lot to do that. I don't see a lot of headache like you can get with traffic control throughout all this. I see it working very smoothly, to be honest with you.
Art?
Yeah, this is kind of for less too, but with 6th Street going down for the sewer project at the same time, it sounds like there's going to be some juggling here. Are we going to be able to handle the east-west traffic while all of this is happening?
Certainly.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it is something we are talking about. Even in our staff meeting yesterday morning, we were having that discussion about the 6th Street projects, which will have some effect on east-west traffic, what happens with ITD's work. We have other asphalt-related projects going on throughout the community this summer as well. So there will be a lot of coordination discussions between ITD and city staff about how we maintain traffic flow throughout the system. So
Well, the
we
good
can
news
figure it
on
out.
that is, yes, we're going to have some detours in different spots, but we're going to get a lot of work done on streets this year, this summer, in the city of Moscow, and that's something that we need to. Not only we did that last year, we're doing it this year, we're doing it every single year, so we can keep plugging away on these things and just chipping away year after year so we can get our streets up to the standards that they need to be. Other questions for? That's a wonderful report.
Yeah. I
Ken
would
Darrell.
like to mention, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, is that brings up a good one, 6th Street. We do have another project that's going to be going on up here this summer, and it's called the Lewiston-Clarkston Grinding Project. And we're going to be grinding, we're going to be crack sealing the concrete section on Jackson Street, and then we're going to do a smoothness grind all the way through on Jackson Street. It'll be a very short project, and it'll be phased that way too, amongst the 3 lanes all the way through there. And so that's timing is, again, it's an FY18. We're hoping to get the funds. If not, it'll be right after July, after the 4th of July holidays, or towards the middle of July probably when it starts. So that'd be kind of nice. You'll have a lot of smooth roads up here throughout the community, and at least on the state system. Sounds like you guys are doing awesome work on your local system too. So, it's pretty exciting.
Yes, it is.
Spending some money.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Well, thank
wonderful
you.
report. We appreciate you coming up and giving us that report. We've all been kind of wondering, so it's good for the community to get a chance, Ken, to see everything. So,
Great.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to our next thing, which is item number 6, Citizens Commission Report, Fair and Affordable Housing. I know Michael Reyes. Mike, are you going to introduce our friend up here, or are we just going to go ahead and take off? Okay, we'll let Ryan's going to do it. Okay. How are you, Ryan? Sorry about that. I heard Mike was the one that was going to be doing this. So.
That's quite all right. All right. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, my name is Ryan Cash. As well as being a Planner 1 for the City of Moscow, part of the ancillary roles are involving sitting on commissions. And one of the commissions that I'm honored and delighted to be sitting a part of and being a staff liaison for is for the Fair and Affordable Housing Commission. Tonight I'd like to introduce the chairperson who represents this group of silent professionals, Mr. Randy Bocool.
Hi, Randy. How are you
Yes,
this
hi.
evening?
Mayor, council members, thank you very much for the privilege to stand up here and share with you some of the stuff that we've been working on here this last year. And I think you just push a button. So our commission members is still a little bit on the light side. This is my 4th year with the commission. I've been the chair for 3 years now. Jamal has been here for several years. Jill Maxwell, our secretary, has been on this commission for, I think, 10 or 12 years, something like that. And then we have Bill Amador and Casey Holcomb. And John Weber is our council liaison, and you know Ryan, the staff liaison. but that does still leave us with 4 vacancies. So we keep pounding the streets looking for new members and people who are interested in this kind of a topic and conversation. And if anybody comes across your paths, please send them our way.
Randy, one thing I will say is we're going to have a commission fair first part of May. The dates are not set yet, but the whole idea is to try to drum up some more activity throughout the community, get some more folks out there to be interested, because your commission is the one that lacks the most. So we're going to do a diligent job in doing that. So that'll be coming up, and we look forward to you being there, and we'll be getting the information out to all the commissions
Good.
here within the next month or so.
Thank you. We do appreciate all of your assistance on that. Our commission is kind of under the radar. We're not in the headlines, and we don't make a whole lot of news all the time, so it's not one of the coveted commissions, I guess. But we do have some very interesting things, and I think very worthwhile things. But I'm just going to briefly talk here. It was a year ago when we had presented to you our analysis of impediments to fair housing, and that document was accepted and incorporated as a part of the comp plan. Within that analysis, we had identified a number of impediments that respondents to the survey had mentioned: accessibility to fair housing, the condition of the units, the size of the units, proximity to public transportation, shopping, proximity to schools, safety, and of course the most commonly mentioned one was the price. So a number of different issues came out of this survey that we had worked on. But with that real brief little thing there, we were able to identify 3 objectives. Or conclusions is what I'll say, survey conclusions. The first one was, throughout Moscow, there is a perception of discrimination in housing. Now, the people that responded like that also acknowledged that they personally had not been discriminated against. It's just that they believe that there is discrimination. It's just a mindset we need to address and possibly overcome some of these fears with some individuals. Another conclusion that we came up with is there is a clear perception of income discrimination with respondents, indicating income is the most significant factor in their choice of housing. An affordability issue. And the third basic conclusion that we arrived at is the annual income to rent expense ratio for renters reaches housing cost burdens, and that's defined by HUD as being in excess of 30% of your income. So those are the 3 overarching conclusions out of that entire survey. So what have we done about this? We identified 6 action items. The first one, research and develop appropriate programs and partnerships that can provide affordable housing. So the Moscow Affordable Housing Trust Program, which we're all very familiar with, is really one of the key elements of this. We wholly support everything that they do and are looking to help them and assist them in any of the projects that they get involved in. The next 2 items on here pertain to the zoning codes. And it just so happened that both of these issues were already on the table for planning and zoning, and both of those elements have already been satisfied. The fourth one, tax policy awareness. We had Rod Hall and Bill Belknap come and visit with us, spend some time with our commission, and enlightened us, the citizens, about some of these things that we weren't formally aware of. But we are still looking for, and I can't help but believe that there's another tool out there someplace that other cities and communities have found and have been able to capitalize on and provide some assistance within other towns, and we'll keep searching for it. The last 2 items on here are really about education. Learn and identify where training programs can be presented, but then also training programs for the general public, tenants, landlords, property managers, and lenders. Education. I think we have really kind of focused, and we have been doing a tremendous amount of education around town. One of them is coupling with ASUI. We hold a series of workshops on campus trying to catch students who are leaving campus housing and going out into the private world, starting to sign leases, get into contracts, and provide some background, some education, inform them of rights and responsibilities. Tenants have rights and responsibilities, but so do the landlords and property owners. So we just need to have a level of awareness to ward off future potential conflicts. So we had 3 sessions last spring, and this year we are continuing to work on those. We already had one. We have a couple more that we're trying to finalize dates with. And ASUI is heavily involved in that. Another project that we've been doing annually is having Idaho Fair Housing come to Moscow and put on a program specifically addressed towards the realtors, housing providers, attorneys, landlords. A number of people are invited to it. But this is just a photo from last year's workshop. It was at the 1912 Center in the art room. 42 people attended. A lot of interest. Landlords, property managers want to know the right way to do things. And this is a fabulous forum for education, particularly some of the ADA issues and the having, what's the word for it, the animals, the dog assistance.
Service.
Yes, reasonable accommodations, right. So that's a fabulous program, and we're having that one again in May this year as well. So promoting Fair Housing Month, April nationally is Fair Housing Month, and I believe it is on your docket here in a couple of months to address that citywide. Posting of training and informational materials in printed form. We've got a number of brochures and handouts available, as well as having a number of resources available on our website. And we try to get the students and the property managers to be familiar with what we have on there. There's samples of leasing contracts, property list checklists to walk through the properties and check the condition to have the walkthrough with the landlords. There's resources going out to Idaho Fair Housing as well as to HUD and some other resources there. Identifying basic principles. This is a conversation that we as a group have just been kicking around. Basic principles about affordability. And we're going to continue this conversation, and hopefully we'll have a conversation with you guys with that in greater detail in the future. So we, coupled with the Moscow Farmers Market, we attend the city table down there and try to address awareness issues. We keep in contact with Sojourners Alliance, Habitat for Humanity, and of course the Moscow Affordable Housing Trust. And there's those principles of affordable housing once again. Inclusionary zoning takings, and that's part of Rod Hall's and Bill Belknap's conversations with us. Very enlightening, very informative. So, things that we're going to continue again for this coming year, we'll continue these landlord-tenant workshops up on campus. Idaho Fair Housing is going to be here, and I believe that is May 21st. That'll be an all-day event, and of course we want to extend a specific invitation to the council members to drop in, have a cup of coffee and a visit, or stay for the whole day if you like. Promoting the April National Fair Housing Month. And I had mentioned our website. This is a project. We are addressing the things that go on there on a regular basis. Another idea that we have been kicking around, and we have a learning curve as to how to go about doing it, but we want to create a webinar something that we can have posted on our website within the city, but also ASUI can have it posted on a couple of their locations. But specifically, an educational thing, talking about rights and responsibilities, because students have busy lives and they don't always have the time to sit at our little deal, so we can have a webinar and they can view it at their leisure. So that's kind of my little show here this evening. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, John, you're the liaison for fair and affordable housing.
Yes, and I'm still just getting my feet on the ground on this end of it. I'm on the Choto for actually building the projects, and we have had one that we rehabbed and sold that house. The other one we started and built a new home, and that is, I think, coming close to being sold. And now we're in the process of getting going on 4, I guess you'd call them connected homes on the south end of Moscow, hopefully to eventually be 12. And with the help of the Affordable Housing Commission, the Fair and Affordable Housing Commission, and getting the information out to not only the people that might want to rent or buy, but to the realtors and to their people that do the actual renting and the controlling. I think we can make a pretty good team to promote the whole deal.
Absolutely. Catherine?
I just had a question about, you have, I know there was some information that came out that said Moscow has about 60% of the housing is rental. That was...
Yes. I remember the document you were referring to. I don't recall exactly the number, but that's probably pretty close.
But I was just curious, what was the correlation between what the university students pay for housing on campus, and maybe there's a correlation between that and what the rental prices are? Have you looked into that?
I have not really made any comparisons between student housing costs versus the rental costs out here in the private community. No, I haven't.
Okay, I just wondered. And then my other question I had to do on the very first slide when you were talking about discrimination, and it had to do with perceptions. Did you have any more exact language about what type of discrimination?
No, and that is a very interesting thing. First and foremost, this survey provided valuable information. It was not a large enough survey to become a statistically valid survey, so we just got some ideas and thoughts and came to conclusions with that. People did say that they believe that there is discrimination. I haven't been discriminated against, but we think that people have been. That's the type of thing that was mentioned within the survey, out of the comments part of it.
But nothing specific.
Nothing specific, right. So, if we had gotten more responses, we might have been able to nail that down onto some specific items, but there is just this belief that discrimination takes place.
So how many responses did you get?
155, I believe it was, out of 3,000 some mailed out surveys, so it wasn't a big number.
No, that's not a big enough of a sample to get back to.
Not to be valid, but it does give you some a pretty good insight as to the overall thought. Mm-hmm. And the survey had been sent out, 4 different sectors of town. And then within each sector, it was kind of evenly split between household income levels and property owners and renters within all 4 sectors. So it was a pretty evenly distributed thing, mm-hmm. As well as the responses coming back were pretty evenly distributed, mm-hmm. But just not enough real detail mm-hmm. to really get down to it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Other questions for Randy? Thank you very much for a great report, Randy. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, we will move on to our next item, item number 7, which is a public hearing, annexation, comp plan designation, and rezoning of the land north of Warbonnet Drive. Michael, Ray, Jim?
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from this item on the menu because the applicant is a first cousin to my wife, and I don't want any appearance of meddling in that. So
we will invite the president back up on item number 8 then, Jim. So, okay. Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Before you tonight, we have a public hearing at the request of Victoria Lynn for an annexation of a 10-acre property directly north of the current terminus of Warbonnet Drive. Also being reviewed is the comp plan designation as well as a rezoning request for that property upon annexation. So we've got those three components. The first, the annexation of the 10-acre property, the adoption of the current comprehensive plan land use designation, and that is currently auto urban commercial. So when we annex that property, we'll need to adopt that by resolution. And then rezoning of the property, and it's currently designated as ag forest, and it's proposed to be rezoned to the motor business zone. Just to orient yourself, we got Warbonnet Drive there running north-south, kind of on the left-hand side of your screen. This would be the 10-acre subject property here, right at the current terminus of Warbonnet Drive. You've got A Street running east-west. This would be a church property here, city well property here to the south. Predominantly agricultural land here to the north, but you also have a couple of homesteads here to the east, as well as some outbuildings. This is Gritman Medical Office Building Complex here to the southeast. That would be Walmart. And then you have some various commercial development here to the southwest, former Staples Building, Goodwill, La Quinta, some of those properties. This would be a survey of the subject property. It's highlighted in yellow there at the south portion of your screen. 10 acres in size. There is a conservation easement of about 40 acres in size directly to the north of this property. And then you also have a couple of those homestead properties that I had mentioned earlier. This will just be a closer view of that property. Once again, you got the church here, Gritman Medical Office Building here to the southeast. I got a topographical map. Those represent 2-foot contour lines. So you can see there's quite a bit of slope to it. It's gaining elevation as you head to the north. Quite a prominent ridge here. And then there's a valley directly on the other side of that ridge to the north of that. Looking at the current comp plan designation, it's currently designated as auto urban commercial, as well as all the surrounding properties to the north, east, and to the south. Primarily commercial there to the south. So what the auto urban commercial designation, what the comp plan identifies that as, is intended to provide for commercial services and developments that are motor vehicle oriented or those require large amounts of land. It should be located adjacent to existing commercial developments and along major arterials where the vehicle traffic can be accommodated. And it points us to the motor business zoning designation as the most appropriate zone for that land use designation. Taking a look at the zoning in the area, like I mentioned, it's currently agricultural forestry, as well as property that's also in the county and the area city impact to the north and to the east. Within the city limits there to the south, the church and the well site are currently in the multifamily residential, that's the R4 zone. And then motor business, predominantly all those commercial and medical office uses are within that motor business zone there to the south and the southeast. The proposal would be to rezone from ag forest to motor business, so we'd be annexing those 10 acres and rezoning to motor business. The zoning code says about the motor business zone, it's typically intended to provide for the location of grouping of compatible uses that have similar operation as they involve enterprises which depend primarily on the transient motor vehicle-based trade. By concentrating such uses, city intends to increase public convenience when utilizing such services, and within the regulation allow such activities to render the maximum service. Taking a look at the comp plan thoroughfare plan, which identifies classifications of roadways, you can see Warbonnet Drive, the red solid or the blue solid line here represents a minor arterial classification. And you can see the dashed line extending here to the north and then heads due northeast after it gets to the northern portion of that 10-acre property. That's just intended to show that as future development occurs, that we'll need to anticipate that Warbonnet would be extended up to the north and to the northeast as a minor arterial classification. Looking at the south there, A Street, that east-west corridor, it's identified as a collector classification, so that would be representative of the green line there. Just had a closer view. You can see city utilities are extended, so water mains, sewer mains, and storm sewer mains are extended all the way to the northern terminus of Warbonnet Drive. So taking a look at that water system, 2012 Comprehensive Water System Plan. It's identified that the existing system has adequate potable and fire flows to handle any future development of that property. The sanitary sewer system, we have those mains in Warbonnet, and then the 2011 Comprehensive Sewer System Plan also identified that the existing system's adequate to serve additional flow that could be come from that subject property. And then the storm sewer system, we can mention the existing main in Warbonnet Drive. I would like to note that Planning and Zoning did conduct a public hearing upon the land use designation as well as the rezoning of the property, and that occurred on February 8th, 2017, and they recommended approval of both those actions. Staff's recommendation is to conduct a public hearing upon the annexation, land use, and zoning designation, and upon consideration of any testimony presented, approve the annexation ordinance under suspension of the rules, and if the annexation ordinance approved, approve the proposed comp plan resolution, and adopt Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria and standards. And then if the annexation ordinance is approved, comp plan land use designation resolution is approved, then approve the proposed zoning ordinance under suspension of the rules, as well as adopting Planning and Zoning Commission's reasoned statement of relevant criteria, with one additional condition that Warbonnet Drive and public utilities shall be extended to the northern boundary of the subject property in accordance with the alignment of the thoroughfare plan within the City of Moscow Comprehensive Plan as development occurs on the subject property. And I'd certainly be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Mike before we go in here? Walter?
Mike, you made a comment that Warbonnet in the comp plan is to be extended, quote, as future development occurs. The next property north is a conservation easement. What impact does that have on Warbonnet at the north edge of this proposed annexation?
Well, this property could be developed, but since that's in a conservation easement, and the applicants could certainly speak a little bit more about that, but it's my understanding that that's a perpetual easement for conservation, so that would prohibit any roadway going through that property at this point in time. You know, it could change in the future. We don't know. It'd be up to the holder of the conservation easement.
Walter?
So, go back to that map. So, as currently imagined, this would be the end of Warbonnet on that 10 acres.
Well, just for this property, it would be the terminus of Warbonnet. That's not to say
I understand that. I'm talking about beyond it.
Well, it's not to say something, you know, things change in the future, and you know, certainly just because it's in a conservation easement doesn't mean that something could be amended in the future where it could be opened up for development, but you know.
Mike, question on that, following up on what Walter had said. Warbonnet Drive doesn't need to go just necessarily north. If you go to the east through that, whatever that is, that farm there.
Yeah, it could follow.
That's not part of that. You got that map for that land trust. So if it didn't go up all the way over, if it went to the right side of that, through, above A Street, I mean, that's not part of that conservation.
It's
land
not.
Yeah, I mean,
right? This is the border of the conservation easement here. So
it could go to the right side of that property, the east side of that property, and go east.
Yeah, it would probably take removal of some of those outbuildings.
Or it could go east and then back up north once it's around that whatever that 40 acres or whatever that is on that conservation easement?
Certainly could.
I mean, it could.
Sure.
It's a possibility.
You got another question, Walt?
If I may, a question for Les. I think I had heard somewhere that you had looked at going east. I don't know whether you were looking at what the mayor's talking about for War Bonnet, or am I incorrect?
I don't recall that we've looked at taking War Bonnet further east. We do have in our records a couple of different routes that were considered over the years for War Bonnet, but they are generally to the north, just a little variation on exactly how due north they would go.
Well,
I'm not aware of any further east.
The point that Walter's making and the point that I've just made too falls right on the condition that staff is recommending that we do, is to add on to the utilities an extension of War Bonnet Drive. We just not sure if it's going to go north or northeast or just east once it gets on a property.
Yeah, the thoroughfare plan
that's what the condition. That's what the condition is speaking about.
Yeah, there'd be some flexibility. It's just to the northern boundary, just because it's this. This is the subject property, but it's really a general alignment. So staff would be able to work with the future developer in order to adjust that slightly.
Okay, John, you had a question?
Well, am I wrong in assuming that we've already got a policy that if you're going to put in a development, you have to take the city services from the one side of your development all the way to the other side?
Well, that'd be part of our subdivision ordinance, and so somebody could develop the property without going through a subdivision plat, and so that would be the concern. So if somebody put a large, say, retail box, right in the middle of that property, there'd be nothing in the city code that wouldn't, not allow them to do that, and there'd be nothing that could force us or could force them in order to extend the street and utilities to the northern property boundary, unless they went through a subdivision plat or a lot division.
So what we're doing then is saying that you have to do this.
When you develop the property, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Good enough. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Before I open that public hearing, I just want to reiterate the three we're having. One public hearing, we're looking at three things that kind of compound into each other. The first would be the approval of an annexation ordinance. And if that is approved, then on with the comprehensive plan use designation resolution. And if that passes through, then to the next, the annex or the approving of the zoning ordinance, if all those three things fall in order. So just keep that in mind, Council. I will open the public hearing right now at 8:07. I would like to hear from the applicant.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Aaron Repke. I am an attorney representing the applicant Victoria Lynn. Victoria Lynn is a personal representative of the estate of Kathleen Montgomery. The Montgomerys were longtime Moscow residents, and they farmed this 10-acre parcel, the subject property. As Mr. Ray pointed out, this is a 10-acre parcel that sits immediately north of War Bonnet Drive. On the south, we have Gritman Medical Complex, we have a church, City Well, and Walmart. And then on the north, as Mr. Ray discussed, is this 40-acre conservation easement. Now, that conservation easement is a perpetual easement. It prohibits all future development, including any type of construction. It is amendable under limited circumstances, but that would be up to the holder of the easement, which is currently Palouse Land Trust. So what this does is it creates a situation where we have development to the south of the subject property, and then we have this property on the north that is subject to the conservation easement that kind of currently caps off any future development. Now, the applicant's request is that the city annex this 10-acre subject parcel, retain its current auto urban commercial designation under the comprehensive plan, and then rezone from ag forest to motor business. And I would like to just say that the applicant has no current plans for development. We're just seeking the annexation and appropriate rezone. As Mr. Ray also said, this request went before Planning and Zoning on February 8th, 2017, and Planning and Zoning recommended approval of the request. As far as the conditions placed upon the rezone, the applicant has no objection to this condition, to extend War Bonnet up to the northern terminus of the subject property and also extend city services. Now, as you consider the relative comprehensive plan criteria and standards and rezone criteria and standards, I'd like to point out just a few facts. The subject property is already designated as auto urban commercial in the comprehensive plan, and we're simply asking to retain this designation, which is consistent with the adjacent properties to the south of the property. The zoning designation of motor business is also consistent with auto urban commercial, and the proposed rezone would simply bring the subject property into a into the development pattern that already exists in the area. Finally, the subject property sits immediately north of War Bonnet Drive, and current public utilities run to the southern edge of the subject property. And by extending War Bonnet Drive, it would provide easy access. Public utilities are accessible, and the Public Works Department has determined that the existing water, sewer, and sewer systems have the adequate capacity to serve the subject property. Any questions?
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Rippey. I think we got that, so thank you.
Thank you.
I will open up comments or from anybody, whether in favor, opposed, or general comments. Not seeing anybody rush up, but we'll close it at 8:11 and ask the council how they'd like to move forward with this. Art.
I'll jump in. This seems to be a logical extension of Moscow's planned development. It's taken into account in the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan. The utilities are all present and in place. And I see, from my point of view, any impediment to approving this.
So are you making a motion, or?
Well, all right, I'll start off with, unless somebody else wants to jump in, but
I was just introducing.
I would approve the annexation ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and to be read by title and published by summary.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Art and a second by Catherine to approve the annexation ordinance under the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings. I'll start to roll. John?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we'll move on to item number 2.
I'll try number 2.
Okay,
unless
John.
you want to. Your Honor, you need to read the ordinance.
Oh, sorry. That's exactly right.
I've got 2 of them that I've got to read as we're going along here, but first things first.
2017-3. 2017-3, an ordinance of the City of Moscow, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho. The land described in Section 1 of this ordinance and generally shown as Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated in this reference be annexed to the City of Moscow, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force effect from and after passage, approval, and publication according to law. So now we will move on to item number 2, John.
I would move that we approve the proposed comprehensive plan, land use designation resolution, and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commissioned reason statement of relevant criteria.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by John and a second by Catherine to approve the proposed comprehensive plan use designation resolution and adopt the Planning and Zoning Commission reason statement of relevant criteria. I'll start with Walter.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Oh, sorry. You were there.
Aye.
Okay. That was a resolution. So now we will move on to item number 3.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed zoning ordinance under suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, and that it be read by title and published by summary.
You want to include the,
I would like to include the
War Bonnet Drive.
War Bonnet Drive condition.
There's 2 conditions, I thought.
There's just one.
There's just one. Okay, so that is my motion.
Okay, and John's second. So we got a motion by Gene and a second by John to approve the proposed zoning ordinance and the suspension of the rules requiring 3 complete and separate readings, with the condition that War Bonnet Drive and public utilities shall be extended to the northern boundary of the subject property in accordance with the alignment of the thoroughfare plan within the City of Moscow's comprehensive plan as development occurs upon the subject property. Everybody's got that? I'll start the roll. John.
Aye.
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 Okay. And we'll move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got another ordinance to read. Yes, I do. Ordinance, land zoning ordinance 2017-4. An ordinance of the City of Moscow, Idaho, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for the zoning of a 10-acre parcel of property described in Section 1 of this ordinance as motor business, providing that the provisions of this ordinance be deemed severable, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law. Okay, with that, we will move on to the next item, item number 8. 2016 Annual Report of the Heart of the Arts, Dwight Curtis, and I know he's going to introduce Jenny, so Dwight?
That's all that I had to say. Good evening. Tonight we have the annual report from Heart of the Arts for the development and operations of the 1912 Center, and with that I'll turn it over to their Executive Director, Jenny Kostroff, and here she is.
Hi, Jenny.
Right, hello. So I decided, since I was coming in after so many words on the screen, that tonight I would give you a story in pictures of the 1912 Center's past year. But first, I should introduce you to our mission. And included in this is a picture of me 10 years ago in the, let's see, the... I'm trying to figure out where my little button is. Which one's the one that does... Ooh, pointer. Ooh, gosh. Okay, so 10 years ago, I was given the key to operate the 1912 Center. It's a very big key, but this picture is of the 1912 Center facility at the time it was handed to me, just so you have a good recollection of what it might have looked like on the western side of the building.
Is that all plywood up there, Jenny?
There was some plywood. Some quality plywood. It still exists. We've got it, and we're using it upstairs to do different things, to walk over mostly. But Heart of the Arts, the company that I run, is tasked with renovating and restoring the 1912 Center using arts and culture as the focus. So May 1st, Dwight will have put up with me for 10 years. Actually, now you've put up with me for 10 years. May 1st, we will have operated the building for 10 years, which is very exciting. This year, our slate of officers, Dave Harlan is our president, Duncan Palmatier, our vice president, Linda Paul serving as secretary, and Mary Packer as our treasurer. And then our directors, we have, we have a total of 12 board of directors. Ben Eamon, Nancy Cheney, Dave Herbold, Sandra Kelly, Jay Pengilly, and then Melissa Rockwood, Bill Terrio, and Mary Beth Stabin are serving with us on our board this year, which is very exciting. Mary Beth plans to do some Skype board meetings because she does travel around a lot, which will be very fun for us to have her on the board for her perspective. Some photos of some of our staff. Currently, Tom and Ari are our 2 high school students that work at the 1912 Center. Lorian is our new PR and marketing individual who's working with us probably through the summer before she takes off to larger cities. We always always seem to lose them to larger cities, you guys, when they can do fun things like PR and marketing. I didn't find any pictures of Allie and Aaron, which is terrible, and I'm going to rectify that situation. But the rest of our team from this past year, Aaron Burkall, let's see, Robbie Valier, who still works with us, Emma Prahl, who works with us when she's back from American University in Washington, D.C. on vacation. She probably will join us again this summer. And Abby Quinnett has left us for the East Coast to go do exciting things over there. So this past year, our major focus was the south side of the 1912 Center and getting all of the final windows restored in the facility. And so I have a quick slideshow to get through because I wanted to make sure there were lots of pictures and less talking. So April 13th, we started replacing the windows on the south side of the facility that faces 3rd Street. And so you can see the 2 windows that are popped out here, the very first 2. And they were working, and then they took a lunch break, and I liked this picture of the windows out and the guys sitting there eating their lunch on that day. But they worked really hard, and that week we had, I think, over 10 windows, and it looks like we had more than that on each floor. The scaffolding was a regular part of the scenery on the exterior through April and May on the plaza. And then when they were done putting the windows in, they did all the tuck pointing and repair around the windows and went to the top cornice, which is this part that's now white along the top of the facility. It's a metal piece that's on the exterior, and so it needed to be sealed so that it doesn't rust. There they are working from a distance on April 19th. And then all 20 in the center, all those windows are in, and they're working on all of the tuck pointing there in May. Then this is May 11th. They were over the east entryway, so we were blocked off from access, and we were using the west entrance to get in and out of the facility while they were doing that for safety. And the building's looking kind of amazing with all of this white along the front of the facility. We weren't done over here, and they were working on that part over there. Then May 31st, they were finishing up the east side, the last 3 windows in the top cornice work and repair there. Then June 3rd, they went to the other side. The swing stage had to get completely moved. It was a major operation. It took them several hours to get that thing moved to the new location. So they did everything that they could in one spot for a while. And they finished the balustrade. This is the balustrade. I think, Walter, at one point you called it gingerbread, and we've always liked that term since. So it's our gingerbread on the building.
It wasn't meant to be derogatory.
Well, no, it's not. We like it. We thought it was actually kind of appropriate, and now I would think I should challenge the Alternatives to Violence on the Police when they do their gingerbread house building competition to do a 1912 center with some proper gingerbread over the entryways. But the balustrade work was completed too, and then the exterior. This is almost done on June 3rd. They just had this portion over here to complete. And then on June 17th, those last 3 windows were put in. And now, look, you can see through the windows to the exterior. And this is kind of neat, too. You can see the skylights that are up in the roof through the windows in the upper part. So when you walk past the 1912 Center, be sure to look up because it's really neat to see those skylights. And we are taking people on tours through the facility anytime we have a public event. So when we have our plaza concerts this summer, we'll take people up on tours at the intermission, and we'll be taking people on tours again during the winter markets next season. So this is thanks to donors. All of those thank yous are made out of Post-it notes that I stuck in reverse on the windows, and it was very effective. A trick that I learned from the people in New York City that were having a Post-it note competition between 2 buildings, and they wrote notes to each other with Post-it notes. So it works. And the total cost for the project on the south side, with all the windows, tuck pointing, cornice restoration, and balustrade, was $193,536 paid. Ching! All done. Then, so to get into some of the fun programming that we did this year, Mixed Greens was our community art show, and so I have a lot of pictures of the fun pieces that were put into that show. It was anything that the artist could come up with on that theme, and it took place in May of 2016. And I even wore green, and so did my husband. He actually came into town for that, which was fun. And this fine piece here is by Celia Boland. Very nice work. She was in our art show. And then Plaza concerts. We had a lot of fun last summer with the Plaza concerts, and we'll be doing those again this summer. The Community Band of the Palouse was our first performance. Then we had Paradox in July, and then Henry C. and the Willards performed, and then Yellow Dog Flats finished out the season. They're on Mondays through the summer, and they're free and open to the public. And like I said, we'll be doing tours of the upper floors during those. Winter markets. We had 2 February and March of last year, and then we get into this fall, this past fall, November 5th and 12th, and December 3rd and 10th. They were very popular and very well attended, and lots of vendors. So it was a really great time. It had grown from the past. So I decided I should do this because I experience all of this, but maybe you don't get to come to everything that's at the 1912 Center, but there is a heck of a lot of stuff that's open to the public, free, and great times. The Enzo String Quartet in January was a partnership between us and the Auditorium Chamber Music Series, so we put the rugs out, and the musicians come and perform for kids and parents and anyone that wants to come to those. It's a really neat concert. There's my mom doing taxes with the AARP Tax Aid. That is something that we do every year, but this runs February through April, and you can get your taxes done for free. This was a Latah County Historical Society Brews and Barbecue event, and I wanted to put this into our slideshow because it was sunshiny April 9th, and everyone was sitting outside. So I thought that might encourage us to think positively about what's coming this spring. Washington, Idaho Symphony did their rehearsals last spring in the 1912 Center, and it was really fun to have that music. Every Tuesday at 10:30 a.m., anyone that is a senior may participate in a free chair yoga session. That's every Tuesday. And just some other photos. Arboretum Association's annual meeting. The Blind and Diabetic Support Group meets in the Senior Center every Wednesday at 10:30. We have karate every Tuesday and Thursday in the 1912 Center, and it's an open practice. And so if you'd like to come practice karate, you can join them for a fee. Then different uses of our spaces. The Arts Workshop space held an ROTC Awards dinner that was catered and very beautiful. There was a free CPR class that Keep the Beat Moscow hosted, and we sponsored the space, and a lot of people got trained in CPR in one session. It was really pretty amazing. Troy Genesee Prom. I bet those kids are probably like, why are you showing these pictures to us? But they have their prom coming this spring too. The Watercolor Associates holds a number of different classes in the Arts Workshop space. There was a bridal fair in the building because several of the local places that hold bridal fairs canceled them last year, and there was a desire by all of the folks that work with the industry to have a space, so we gave them the great room. Palouse Fiber Festival was held last summer, and probably, I think they go every other summer, so it won't be this summer, but the following summer, but it's really neat to have them there for the whole weekend during Arts Walk. Art Walk. Lots of weddings, lots of different takes on the room, but the popular colors, magically, these were different weddings. It was burlap was in last season, just so you know, and coming up this season, I don't know what the colors are going to be, but red, black, and white are starting to show up a bunch. Birthday parties, the library had their summer reading program celebration in August. We had a women's conference and a Buy Local Moscow Eat Local event where all the food was locally produced, and so was the beer from Hunga Dunga. Alternative Giving Market in December is a great way to connect with all the different nonprofits, and they held their event in the Great Room space. So I just wanted to give you a flavor of all the different things that come through the building. Art shows, we hosted several during the course of the year. Art Walk, we had an artist that had never shown her work before, Mary Neal Holden, so we called her show Debut. And then What Does Water Mean to You? You'll see a very familiar face or two or 3 here. Those were the guest judges for the kids' art competition that focused on the theme of water, which was appropriate for the year of the Smithsonian exhibit. So that was fun, too. And we also hosted a sync work party with the students serving your new community, the first-year students up at the University of Idaho coming. And it was neat because Mary Beth Staben was actually able to come with the crew and help work at the facility. Part of how I was able to recruit her to join our board, because she actually has pulled weeds at the 1912 Center. Come on, that's a really good thing. So I would happily answer any questions that you could possibly have about the facility, because I hang out there a whole lot. And
You've done a good job for 10 years, Jenny. So.
Thank you.
And your enthusiasm shows from when the building first started and the work and the different things that you've done over the years. It's been marvelous what the Arts Commission has done, and you spearheading that.
Thank you. I was telling Dwight at the back of the room before the meeting started tonight that I looked back at the numbers. In 2006, the Great Room was the only space that was available to be used, and there were some months where there were only 5 events for an entire month in the Great Room, 5 total events, and that included anything like weddings and all that stuff. And then now I can have 5 events in one night. So the Arts Workshop, the Fisk Room, the Senior Center, Friendship Hall, and the Great Room in use at the same time. So we've grown.
Oh, yes. Awesome job. John?
Well, I'd just like to comment. Number one, you've done a wonderful job over the years. You've turned that building into what it is, and you've raised a tremendous amount of funds. The things that it's used for in the community are never-ending. And to give a little bit of props to the Moscow High class of 1965, we purchased one, and we purchased 2 of those windows.
Yep.
Because when I went to high school in Moscow, I had classes in that building. Also had a friend of mine fall through the ceiling in the gym. It was kind of an experience, one that we all enjoyed.
Children.
And anyway, we were glad to do it. The members of our class that lived here in town and the members that came in for the high school reunions were fully in support of making some of our class money a donation to not 1 but 2 of the windows. And I think that it has been a wonderful thing for the city of Moscow. Took a little while to get it going, but you've done that.
We're working on it.
Congratulations and thank you.
Yep.
Walter?
And every year I'm very happy to be complimentary of Heart of the Arts and Jenny. I don't know how you keep your energy up, but what's next?
So what's next? This summer we're working with the city to do the roof replacement project because the roof's at the end of its life. It's not leaky, just in case you know. It's not leaky because I keep it not leaky, just so you all know that. But it's at the end of its life, and so it's time for a new roof. So that project hopefully will happen this year. And then we're working on the monument sign for the corner of the property, so it says 1912 Center, so that people know they're in the right place, especially those that have come from out of town, because we have a lot of out-of-town visitors to the facility. And in the meantime, we're working to fundraise $500,000 a year for the next 3 years so that we can go into construction on the next floor up, with the plan that in the 4th year we will be in construction for the whole 2nd floor of the facility. And so next year I will give you a full picture of all those spaces and where we're at in that progress. But we've sort of taken a split it up over the years approach. If we happen to have a donor that comes in with a larger amount of money earlier, we'll definitely move the timetable forward, but the plan is that on the 4th year, we build. 3 years of fundraising and 1 year of fun.
It'll be exciting to see the report next year, Jenny, when you do it. And, you know, over these 10 years, this lady has been the most enthusiastic person consistently for 10 years, not just once in a while, but for 10 years running that I've ever been around in my life. And it shows in what you're getting accomplished here, Jenny, so congratulations.
It's the one thing I can talk about with great certainty, so I always am really pretty grateful for that.
Well, I always look forward to this report.
Well,
so
thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jenny, out.
We will move on to item number 9, 1118 and 1122 King Road lot line adjustment. Michael Ray. Mike, you have the podium, sir.
Evening again, Your Honor, council members. So we have a lot line adjustment between 1118 and 1122 King Road. This was reviewed by Public Works Finance Committee on December 12, 2016. It was delayed a little bit because we were waiting for a corrected legal description, so that's why you're just seeing it now. 2 parcels highlighted in red on the center of your screen. You see King Road running north-south here, and Taylor Avenue. This is U of I campus, and Nez Perce Drive. Closer aerial and zoning view of the property. That light blue is the R4, which is multifamily residential. Further up the road on the west side of Walenta and Ridge Road, you'll see the R1, which is our low-density single-family residential zone. So looking at the requirements of the R4 zone, we have a minimum lot width is 50, minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet. Typical setbacks, fronts 15, rears 20, street sides 13, and the side is minimum of 5, but both of them have to equal 15. We do have special requirements for flag lots, and this is what 1122 is proposed to be as a flag lot. Defined as a lot with access provided to part of the lot designated for use as a building site by a narrow corridor. And we don't define how large that narrow corridor can be, I guess. So a flagpole portion of lots, we just say that they can't exceed 150 feet in length, and then they have to be at least 20 feet in width. So we don't have a maximum in width for a flagpole portion. So looking at the 2 lots, we have 1118 here to the north, and you've got 1122 here to the east. Proposal would be to convey a 20 by 36 foot area from 1118 to 1122. There is an existing garage on 1122. We measure the front setbacks, so this would be the new flagpole portion of the lot. When it comes out into the main portion of the lot, we typically measure our front yard setbacks from the middle of the flagpole portion where it comes into the main portion. So it'd be a 15-foot front yard setback, and there'd be a radius here. We'd measure a front yard setback. So there can't be any structures within that front yard setback, and there is currently a garage, and that will be a future condition that it needs to be either relocated or torn down in order to meet that setback requirement if this lot line adjustment is approved. So this is what it looks like on the ground. 1118 is 10,087 square feet in size. 1122 is about 7,200 square feet in size. Current structures on the properties, you have a single-family dwelling here as well as on 1122. There's that adjustment, so 20 feet to the east and 36 feet tall results in a 40-foot width flagpole portion of that lot. So like I mentioned, this is reviewed by Public Works Finance. They recommended approval in December 12, 2016. Staff's recommendation is to approve the lot line adjustment request with the condition that the existing garage at 1122 King Road be removed or relocated in order to meet setback requirements. I'd certainly be able to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, well, at Public Works and Finance Committee, it was on December 12th.
And it was pretty much passed forward with a recommendation to pass. Can't see anything wrong with this as long as they move the garage. So with that, I would make a motion that we approve the lot line adjustment request with the condition that the existing garage on 1122 King Road be removed or relocated in order to meet the setback requirements.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Jim and a second by John to approve the lot line adjustment request with the conditions that the existing garage on 1122 King Road be removed or relocated in order to meet the setback requirements. I will start to roll with Walt.
I have
You got
a question, if I
Walt?
may, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, before we vote. Mike, would the 1122 King become a Queen address?
Well, the
serious question, really.
Queen Road is a private drive, so we can't have a street address off of a private drive. It'd be King Road still is, I think, the current addressing of that property, so nothing will change. It'll still be a King Road address.
Okay, so which one's 1122 King?
This one.
Okay, on the drawing in the packet, it's labeled 1120
They had mislabeled.
King, and then King is in parentheses.
They had mislabeled that, so I had corrected it on the PowerPoint, but so I had 1122. But yeah, they have. It should be King. They just had it mislabeled on the site plan.
Okay, so the address for King is correct.
Correct.
Even though access is off of Queen.
Correct.
And they have, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Sure. Go ahead.
And they have whatever easement is necessary to access it off of the private street?
Yeah, they have a private easement across this property for access to their property. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Lori, do you have the motion? Do I need to restate it? You okay with it? The motion was made by Jim and second by John. I'll start the roll. Walter?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you. Michael? We will move on to item number 10 now. Well number 10, connection, 2016 bid results and contract award. Bob? Lavelle? Hi, Bob. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing good this evening. How are you?
Good.
All right, good evening, Your Honor, council members. Tonight I'm here to talk to you about the Well 10 connection project. This project was designed in 2016 and bid in December of 2016 to connect our new Well 10 that we drilled last year into the system. The existing transmission system is in the Palouse Mall parking lot, kind of back behind where Hastings is. So we'll talk about that. Just to kind of give you an idea of where we're talking about. This is the cover sheet of the project, and that kind of shows up there in the northwest part of town. Here's a little bit of a zoomed in portion of that showing. That's where U-Haul is. North would be towards the left. There's Palouse Mall. This is A Street up where A Street terminates, and then would connect in further over by, I think that's Farm Road. So War Bonnet would be down in here. This is Walmart. Kind of give everybody an idea of where we're talking about. And then in the Public Works Committee meeting, there was some discussion about the city limits. This project, this water line, will technically be built outside of the city limits. We have all the appropriate easements from the university. The university currently owns that portion of land they're going to utilize. So it's not anticipated that shouldn't be any problem. We have the easement signed and all the legal documents we need to move forward with that. This shows the existing, and a lot of the information here you probably won't be able to see on here, but the upper portion of the plans here show where the existing water lines come up, terminate, where we'll pick them up and run down that property, continuing down, and then tying into the transmission loop in the Palouse Mall parking lot. On February 7th, we opened bids. We had 7 bidders. The engineer's estimate for this project was $2015 $846.80 for the base bid, and then we also had an alternate. And the engineer's estimate for the alternate was $194,846.80. The low bidder was Sandry Construction. They're out of Spokane. They also have an office in Montana. Their bid for the base bid was $149,800, and their bid for the alternate was $128,100. Staff is recommending that we award the contract to Sandry Construction. The alternate number 1 portion of the bid is what we're proposing to award to Sandry Construction. If you have any questions, I'd be
Question, Walter?
answer those now.
Question I asked at the committee meeting, just to get it reiterated. Sandry is comfortable with their bid being $64,000 under the engineer's estimate and $25,000 under the next bidder?
Yes, I've had several conversations with them, just letting them know the schedule of what we need to do to get a contract awarded to them, and they have not expressed any concerns with their bid.
And
Go ahead, Walter.
One other separate question, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Last, there was a question at committee about that private drive not being in the city. Any new information on that?
It is a piece of property owned by the University of Idaho. They acquired it from the Montgomerys, who were here earlier this evening on their annexation. That property is owned by the university between A Street and State Highway 8. A portion of it at the very southern end is within the city limits. The northern portion, as shown here on the screen, is outside the city limits. We have had facilities outside city limits in the past. There's really no concern with that. We have easements in hand, as Bob mentioned, from the University of Idaho on their property for this route. So I think everything's in good order.
Okay.
Art. Just one question. I note in here that it cites ductile iron is the material for construction. Isn't that the same material that got us into trouble on F Street earlier in the year with the big blowout?
Actually, I think that was cast iron. So it is a different material than. Okay. And then we were using ductile iron for this project because it is the transmission line that goes from the pump to the reservoirs on the east end of town. Those pipes tend to see a little bit higher pressure spikes, and we've found that the ductile iron handles those a little bit better than PVC is the other common choice for pipe material.
John.
Yeah, I was concerned about the difference in the bid from the other bidders to the final bidder. I'm glad you have been able to clarify that by saying that you've been in contact with them and they are still comfortable with their entire bid. Kind of off the mark, but was the number of bidders, do you feel that had anything to do with the one company saying if we want this work, we better go low?
Any answer I could give to that would be speculation.
Speculate.
This is a company that hasn't done any work for us before. It's possible that they are trying to get a foot in the door in a different market.
Okay.
Well, for $70,000 less than what our staff planned, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Art,
And you're going to personally guarantee that they're going to get it done under budget?
My department will be
Good call
inspecting
on that,
daily, yes, and keeping a good eye on them, yes.
Art, I was going to make a motion to accept the low bid from Sandry Construction and award the contract in the amount of $128,100 for the project, including alternate number 1, and authorize staff approval for construction change orders in the amount not to exceed 10% of the contract amount.
Second.
You got one.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a motion by Art and a second by Gina to accept the low bid from Sandry Construction Incorporated and award the contract in the amount of $128,100 for the project, including alternate number 1, and authorize staff approval for construction change orders in the amount not to exceed 10% of the contract amount. I'll start to roll with Walter.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Well, the next thing up is street repairs and maintenance by Tyler Palmer. We talked a lot about streets today, Tyler, and so there you have it.
All right.
Give us a heads up on what's going on.
Okay, yeah. Mayor Lambert, Council, appreciate the chance to come in and chat with everybody tonight a little bit about street maintenance. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but it's still wintertime out there. Yeah. In 15 years working public works, which makes me feel really old to say I've been 15 years working public works, this is the hardest winter on pavement surfaces I've seen. We are always teaching our staff that moisture is the enemy of any road. Water is what really compromises a road, and anytime you live where there's freeze-thaw cycles, we'll go down and we'll go to some of the conferences and talk to your Phoenixes and your Houstons where they never freeze, and we just are really envious of the way that they're able to do pavement that we're not. North of the 45th up here, we get freeze-thaw, and this winter's been a tough one. And so we wanted to talk a little bit tonight and been asked to just come and chat a little bit about the impact that it's had on our street system. And it's definitely had an impact on the street system, as we've been here multiple times talking to you all about the efforts that we're making to do our road maintenance. Winters like this aren't terribly helpful. It's nothing that we don't really anticipate. We're going to have tough winters, and this was a tough winter, and so we want to just update the council on where we're at and talk about where we're heading from here as far as road maintenance goes. I've got Steve Schulte, our street superintendent, with me today. Steve's one of those guys that really makes the city run. He's a rubber meets the road guy. One of the reasons that we all get to sleep easy is because a lot of times Steve doesn't. He's the guy getting the 2 a.m. phone call frequently and making sure that we have people out and that people are able to get to work, the children are able to get to school. Puts in a lot of work to try and make everything run appropriately between. And this time of year, it's a shuffling act. It's between plowing to filling potholes, back to plowing, and he really does a good job with that. So I'm going to have Steve run you guys through a little bit of what he's seen and what the challenges have been, and then we'll talk about where we're going from there.
Hi, Steve. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Hey, this is one of the guys who can run one of the snow plows, too, or graders or any of that stuff. So I'm truly thankful about that, because I know this guy's out there in the middle of the night through the course of this winter. With that, Steve, I'll let you go on.
It has been, as Tyler said, a very difficult winter. It started fairly early in December there, I think around the 6th of December, and it seems like we just haven't had a break. You get maybe a day or two here, but then it tries to flood, and then, there's just no breaks. The winter, it threw a curveball at us this year with colder snow than we usually see. It stacked up, and we were still trying to plow snow that fell in December and the end of January. It just never melted and went away like we're used to. It took the highly trained crew that we've got, that with the first couple of storms, we trained them up. We got new guys in from the water department, from collections, from the other public works departments that come and help out, and that's what assists us, the street department, and makes this successful snow removal operation work. It's hard to quantify how many hours we put into
plowing snow. I guess we can pull it up, but how much time each one of those guys thinks about plowing snow at home. They're all passionate about plowing snow and keeping these roads safe. It's great to have a crew of guys like that keep the roads open and drivable. One of the things that helps us do that is the equipment. We've got great equipment for plowing snow. With old, ratty, rusty equipment, it wouldn't be possible to do what we do, and part of that's thankful to what we've got, at the shop. So this long winter has broken at times and produced the potholes. Here's a couple of shots of 3rd Street. The deterioration of 3rd Street has escalated much quicker than we would have planned, much faster than we thought it was going to fall apart. It was on the radar, but it very quickly moved up that list. Here's a couple of shots of the potholes that are just never ending. You turn your back and there's another one. And that freeze-thaw cycle that Tyler talked about, the water gets into those cracks, gets underneath the street. The freezing cold December and January we had, and the potholes were down there forming. When it finally warmed up a little bit, here they came. Now the crew's out filling potholes every day, sometimes 2 crews a day, and we've got, so far, and this is just this winter, 453 man-hours of filling potholes. That's a pretty large number. Only one that trumps it is the snow plowing number. That's pretty much all we've done is plow snow, fill potholes. Then it snows again, plow snow, fill potholes. That's 28,000 pounds of cold mix. That's the material, the asphalt we use during the winter to fill potholes. 28,000 pounds hand shoveled material. That's a lot of shovels. If you think about each pothole maybe being 50 pounds apiece, maybe less, that's a lot of potholes. These guys have been chasing them all over town, but it's way more than we're used to this year. I guess so. As far as moving forward, it's not the end of the winter. It's supposed to snow tomorrow. That's going to form some more potholes. And we're still seeing roads thaw out. They're not done, warming up, and the potholes aren't done forming. We're still going to see more of them popping up. And Tyler will take on the next section here. We need to keep doing what we can to maintain these streets, preserve what we've got on the surface, keep the water out from underneath them, and hopefully there's not so many potholes next year.
Steve, you and your crew's done a fabulous job this winter. For the winter that we've been in, you talked about rusty old equipment and stuff, and our town did very, very well. And there was towns in this state that really suffered. They didn't have the equipment. They didn't have the man-hours to do it. And quite frankly, they didn't have the wherewithal to make it happen. Some of those cities pretty close to us that struggled. And so I feel pretty good that our guys did a great job this entire winter. And so my appreciation to you and your whole crew. So, and that comes from all of us up here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So, one of the things I really appreciate about Steve and his crews, they're never complacent. They really want to continually improve. We've already had meetings. I was going to say spring, but we're not spring yet. That was wishful thinking. We've already had meetings in the last couple of weeks with Smart Transit, with the school district. We've sat down with the Parks Department, just trying to coordinate and talk to these people about what challenges they've had and how we can improve. Because anytime we have a tough winter, anytime we have anything that tests our systems and stresses the systems, it's a really good time for us to analyze and look at what we can do better. And so I really appreciate that commitment. They never get complacent. It's never just good enough. It's always, okay, how do we make this better and how do we keep this system evolving, keeping educated, staying on top of the latest technologies. And a lot of that credit goes, as Steve mentioned, we can't do the job without the right tools. And those tools include us getting the right people, getting those people educated appropriately, and having the right equipment to put them out in the field with. And that involves our Public Works Administration, Les, Gary, help from the Finance Department. It takes the whole team to make that happen, and we really appreciate the council as we go through those processes being supportive as we've tried to modernize and make sure we have the tools to provide the services that our community desires. So we really appreciate that. So, moving forward, as Steve mentioned, our surface treatments, the efforts that we've gone through over the last several years of modernizing and treating our good roads and trying to keep our good roads good, that is what really helps us in these situations. It's something that, as we know, we've been underfunded. Funding is very difficult for streets with the way that the structure is set up in the state of Idaho and the options that we have for funding the streets. We made great strides in this last year's budget. We had the biggest PMP budget that we've had, and we plan to utilize that well this year. One of the things we have coming up is our slurry seal project. We look forward to that bid opening tomorrow, actually, on the slurry seal. It's really interesting. The city of Moscow was the first entity to perform a slurry seal, in our entire region, and that was 6 years ago now. That first year that we did it, we had 2 companies that bid on our slurry seal. One of the bids was quite a bit higher than the other bid. It was kind of a, well, if they'll pay me this, I guess we'll come out there type of a thing. Since then, we have several entities that have cooperated with us on the slurry seal. We work very closely with the City of Lewiston. We put out a bid simultaneously with the City of Lewiston this year so that we can, through our street maintenance co-op, we work with several entities to try and coordinate these efforts so we get those economies of scale that are hard to get individually with smaller cities that are geographically isolated. So we have 4 bid holders for that package, and we really look forward to seeing the bids come in and anticipate good bids as they've come in. And there's been several slurry seals since we did that initial one, and we've had success in the region. And so we've got a decent-sized slurry seal package. We have some money. We have about $700,000 in the PMP this year in the pavement management program. We've got about what we anticipate to be $300,000 to $350,000 in slurry seal for the project, depending on where bids come in. The remainder of the funds, we had looked at potentially doing maybe another AR chip seal or a different surface treatment. With the winter that we've had, we're probably going to have to look at some alternatives for that funding. As you all know, 3rd Street out here, as Steve mentioned, has been highly problematic. We have streets like Almond Street. Interestingly enough, Joseph Street was an area that first couple hundred yards as you turn off Joseph Street on Mountain View across the park there. It's a really bad segment of road. It's one of our lowest rated roads in our condition index. But it didn't see the degradation that we saw on certain spots like the 6th Street Hill or 3rd Street. And we've been brainstorming trying to think of why that didn't quite blow up with the moisture this year. And I suspect it has something to do with the extensive underdrains that were laid in conjunction with the park that was built there, the ball fields. That picks up quite a bit of water that otherwise is migrating to the south there and across that road. And so that may be one of the causes that we haven't seen the rapid degradation there. But the remainder of those funds, we're probably going to be approaching the council as we try and put together some plans to take care of some of these really bad stretches. And so it's unfortunate. We hate to have to take that money that we really want to spend on surface treatments and spend it on more extensive repairs, but that appears that like it's going to be the case after a tough winter like we've had. The asphalt rubber chip that we put down last year, we appreciate it. We got a call from the contractor that installed the asphalt rubber chip a couple months ago, and they'd indicated that they'd had an issue with, they had two main pieces of equipment that installed our asphalt rubber chip. One of the pieces of equipment that they had installed, upon inspection, they found that there was an item that the calibration, that it had malfunctioned, and so the calibration was not what they thought it was, and it wasn't applying the level of emulsion that they thought. And so, and they contacted us before we'd had an opportunity to see it without snow and being able to actually adequately sweep the street, and said, hey, there may be problems with some of the application, and we'll come back out and we'll take a look at it and we'll see what we need to do to make it right. It looks like D Street is that street, and that was where that piece of equipment was used. If you go on it, you'll notice that there are some areas where we've had scrubbing of the rock that was applied. We actually have a meeting set up next week with two representatives from the contractor who applied it, and they've been very cooperative and understand our position that we expect warranty on any work that we've had provided, especially 1 year after. It was a tough winter. It's a tough winter on any surface treatment for sure, but the encouraging part is we've had areas elsewhere where we've put it, like 6th Street and East Street, where they actually had the appropriate installation at the appropriate levels of calibration, so we were getting the right emulsion rock mix, where it's held up very well. We've been actually very pleased, especially considering the winter. It was one heck of a test on these surfaces this winter. And so I guess with us not, we probably wouldn't have put out another asphalt rubber chip this year with this experience until we saw what the repairs were going to be and see how they hold up over a second winter. And so taking those funds and focusing maybe on some different projects to try and clean up a little bit after this winter may not be the worst thing. And so a little bit of a mixed bag on the asphalt rubber. We're very happy where it was applied correctly, and we will be updating the council again once we have met with the contractor and work with them toward a resolution on the other locations. And so that's what we're kind of looking forward to. And with that, I'll stand for any questions that the council might have about the plans for road work or the winter or anything else we've had.
One thing about that rubber chip seal that we had this past year, this is the winter to really test it out. There's no doubt about it, because it's not going to be any rougher than that. So
no.
I was actually pretty impressed with it, Tyler.
Yeah, where you're right, Mayor. Where it was applied correctly,
yeah.
we were, F Street and 6th Street, we were really impressed. And so the D Street, we were getting nervous, but I really appreciated them taking the initiative, because it would really made us nervous if there wasn't something that was, if that was what we could expect, then that would have made us nervous, and we really don't have another tool for that segment of the toolbox, and so we're really hopeful that that would help us fill that segment. I mean, for example, we've got an estimate to just do a grind and inlay on 3rd Street here, which isn't a complete rebuild. It's just taking off roughly 2 inches and putting 2 inches back to try and nurse this street through. And that the total project estimate is about $175,000 to do that. Of that $175,000, $35,000 roughly is just in putting in the ramps along that stretch. And so when we do the surface treatments, that's the really difficult part, is we see a huge percentage that comes along. There's a threshold that we hit that requires that ramp installation. And so if we can do these surface treatments like the asphalt rubber chip, it makes more of those projects attainable, because we're not having to add that 30 to 40% at times on a project in order to address the ramps with that project. And so that's, we're hopeful it'll work, and in the areas where it appears to have been applied correctly, it seems to be functioning in a way that we would hope. And so we'll work toward a solution on D Street and then see where we go from there.
Tyler, the whole team's done a good job on it this year.
Thanks, Mayor.
Even though it's been a rough year. Question, Walter?
Well, yeah, I'll echo the mayor. Great job on this. I think the message for the public is that you're doing your best fighting the weather that you've got. I don't know whether y'all caused this by presenting tonight, but y'all have seen it, the severe weather alert for tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you very much. But the city and the people need to know that we are aware of the streets. We understand. We're doing our best with what we can. The city would appreciate phone calls if it's a particular bad pothole. We want to know about it so they can get some mix in it before it takes your tire off. We don't want to damage cars. They are very responsive to calls to get particular problems that are really nasty. The fact that 3rd Street or Mountain View south of 6th is bad, they know that. But if it's a particular car buster out there, don't hesitate to call it in and give them an opportunity to jump on it.
Absolutely.
You do a great job. And, Steve, we really appreciate you and your people.
Thank you.
All right.
Phyllis.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Keep on going.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to reports. I'll start with you, Jim.
We've pretty much covered everything from Public Works Finance, and that's the only meeting I had. The only other item I have is that I'll be doing the firefighter stair climb this Sunday with the volunteer fire department to show them some support in their fabulous efforts. And anybody that wants to jump on board with a little sponsorship, that'd be great. The mayor and Art have been on board, so anybody else that wants to piggyback on that, that'd be great. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jim. Art?
Tree Commission met a while back, and they are hard at work putting together the urban tree workshop and the tree planting guide, especially for the street tree areas. Also gearing up to have a discussion with the downtown street trees, some of which are failing rather badly, and see if we can partner the Tree Commission along with the URA and City Council to put in some new trees downtown as required, identifying heritage trees, replacing aging out trees in existing older neighborhoods so we still have a canopy going forward, and generally doing a lot of really good work getting ready for the growing season this year. CETA met, and they are forwarding some concerns about funding on the part of the federal government, the Economic Development Association, which is where they derive many of their funds from, to have us talk about it should the occasion arise when we go back to D.C. for the National League of Cities meeting, express some support for those funding channels. Also, URA met last week, and things are going forward at 6th and Jackson, and we hope to see some action on that later on this summer. The DEQ conveyance with the nitrate issue on that seems to be finally wrapping up, and we'll get a covenant not to sue so we can transfer the property off to the Sangria people, and they can go forth and start building, we hope.
Walter. Thank you, Mayor. Well, since we didn't report last time, I'm going to reach back just a little bit. I did attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings on Wednesday, February 8th, and again on February 22nd. Just a couple of comments out of those. One, they're working on comprehensive plan updates, working their way through chapters 1 and 2 in those two meetings. And then at the second meeting, they talked about their shared readings, which were focusing on sustainability, density, and walkability issues. On February 23rd, I attended the Historic Preservation Commission. A couple of items out of that. They're working on interpretive signs for 3rd Street, primarily the City Hall and the 1912 building. And they're also working on designing a retractable commission banner to use when they make presentations such as at Farmers Market. Back on February the 6th, I reported there was an upcoming conference call on that Friday, February 10th, with the AIC Municipal Water Committee, where they were going to be discussing potential future legislation. In that call on the 10th, we were told that they would be bringing forward legislation to attempt to protect municipalities from water calls. This hasn't been an issue up in North Idaho, but it certainly is down in the Snake River aquifers with problems that they've got down there. But we are interested in case we ever get into that situation up here. There was a second conference call. Well, at that first conference call, just to tell you, Bob Culver, the mayor of Jerome, was elected chairman of that group, and is handling that. At the second call, which was on the 20th of February, the staff reported that they were not going to be able to bring legislation forward this year. They were getting a fair amount of pushback from some of the water user groups in southeast Idaho. They were continuing to negotiate and to work on it. They wanted to do something next year, but they were not going to be able to move any legislation forward this year. So that has changed a little bit from what we first thought. But it's still out there. We're still working on it. I sit on that board for the city, and we'll keep everybody appraised.
Okay, Catherine.
Well, we had that great presentation by Jenny and for the facilities, but and she's already raising money for 2017. So the last meeting we had, so far for 2017, they had raised $2,489, and they finished up filming the movie Last Champion. And she was very glad to have that done. And the last winter market happened, and I was really glad to hear that she's going to continue to do the tours, because I think people are really getting a lot out of that. Parks and Rec met, and the brochure for all the summer programming is coming out April 1st. They've been working on that, and then we saw that Mr. Newell will be taking a new position for Parks. Yeah, so I just got to work with him a little, and best of luck to them. And then the fire department meeting, they have the big fundraiser that Jim's going to be part of. And then they attended the high school career fair, which I thought was really good. and the residents, and those people came on February 15th, and then they have a car wash coming up on Mom's Weekend, April 22nd.
Nice. Gina?
Okay, I was forced to miss my second Sustainable Environment Commission meeting because we keep having Monday holidays. And we have then council meetings moved in direct conflict. So I'll have something to tell you about the Sustainable Environment Commission maybe in March, unless we have another Monday holiday. I also went to my second Pollute Space and Aquifer Committee meeting, and we are now revisiting with our new executive manager, Corey Woodley. We will be looking at our communications plan, so there's going to be some good stuff coming from that. Actually, we'll get into it tomorrow with our consultant out of Spokane.
I've just got a couple things having to do with the Urban Renewal Agency. We had, in accordance with state statute, a annual report presentation by Bill Belknap, our director, and we accepted that report. There again, it's something that's required by law, so we have to do it by the end of March every year. That has been taken care of. And then we dealt with a proposed amendment to the exclusive negotiation agreement with Sangria Downtown LLC, having to do with the property on 6th and Jackson. And there were some amendments that they wanted to make to that agreement as to the size of the project they're doing. And we accepted that, and we are now going to go ahead with the negotiation for them to hopefully buy the property. And if they can buy the property, then hopefully they can get started on building the building that has been held up a couple of years by the environmental state from, it has not been Sangria that has caused the problem. It's been the water drainage on that lot and from the environmental people from the state. However, as Art said, hopefully we are closing in by the end of this month to having a clean bill of health, and then it will go to Sangria to actually present us with a prospectus as to what they can do, when they can do it, and it would be then up to us to accept or reject that particular proposal. That's all I have.
Okay, February 22nd, I attended an airport board meeting, and we talked about a number of different things and bids going out this month. They're out right now for additional work on the runway project. One of the interesting things is the instrument landing system we've got approved. We got word on that last week, and that was a very exciting thing. So that was a big deal for us for our airports because 99% of the carriers out there use that rather than GPS. So we're very tickled that we've received that. Association of Idaho Cities, the legislative hearings that we have on February 10th, 17th, and 24th. I was on phone conversations and to see what our legislators in the state of Idaho are doing. And I don't want to be negative about it, but it doesn't seem like we've got much accomplished, folks. So I'll just leave it at that. And there's just a few more weeks left. These guys want to get wrapped up by the 24th of March. So I think there's going to be a lot of things probably happen in the last 2 weeks. And State of the City on Wednesday, I will be giving the State of the City address at the Best Western. So those of you that want to join us, it'll be kind of fun. We'll get a chance to talk about a number of different things. And then next week, there's some of us going to be at the National League of Cities in Washington, D.C. Gary, myself, Art Bedke, and Walter Steed will be there attending various sessions and seminars to see what's going on in
see what we can drum up, and we're going to get a chance to meet with our two U.S. Senators, Crapo and Risch, as well as Representatives Labrador and Simpson, I think. But with that, Gary, you got something before we move on to the next thing? Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session per Idaho Code 74-2061C and 1F. This meeting will not reconvene once that's over with.
I would so move.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Art and second by John. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will adjourn to executive session, folks.